Hello and welcome to another episode of my Productivity Mastery series. My name is Pullein and this week it's all about how you manage your tasks in your to-do list manager. Now last year I discovered a problem that I was seeing with many of my coaching clients, which was no matter how smart and intelligent they were really struggling to maintain consistency in getting their work done. And what I was looking for when I started my research was, where is the common denominator? Why are they really struggling with their tasks when really a task is a task, it just needs to get done. Now these people were doing their daily planning sessions, they were doing their weekly planning sessions, and yet they were still struggling to get their work done. They just felt stressed out and overwhelmed, which is probably the reason why they hired me to be their productivity coach in the first place. But what I discovered was that every single one of them was managing their task by project. And I was also thinking, well, I manage my task by project. And when I went through this with a really, really tiny, finite detail, like obsessive detail, I realized that a lot of things that I collect each week and each day get put into these project folders if I decide they are a project, and that's another decision I have to make. And those tasks just disappear. They just get forgotten about. They just die. And eventually I will do a full, huge, long, big weekly review and discover tasks that I put in there 6 months ago. Oh dear, I forgot about that. I never did it. And I was thinking, well, why does this happen? Because all it's doing is adding more and more and more tasks. And then if you have one of those project managers that tells you the total number of tasks that you have, it becomes like, whoa, I've got 900 tasks or 600 tasks. You're never going to do them within a year because you've got all the other stuff coming in as well that you have to manage on a day-to-day basis. So I started looking for a better way to manage my tasks. And in the end, what I decided or came up and discovered was, well, no matter how intentional you are, no matter how motivated you are, no matter how inspired you are, if you don't have enough time to do a task, it is not going to get done. And it doesn't matter who gave you that task. It doesn't matter how important you think that task is. If you don't have enough time, it is never, ever going to get done. That sort of led me then to the realization that really there is only one way that you can manage your tasks that will ensure that you get them done, and also to make sure that they do not get lost. And that is to organize your tasks by when you are going to do them. So then I had to start thinking about, well, okay, that's fine. When am I going to do a task? That's an easy decision to make, because when I collect a task, I can see it. I can decide now, okay, this task is important. It needs to be done this week. Great. Put it into a this week folder. And then I thought, well, this task doesn't really need doing this week, but I should get onto it next week. Okay, put it into a next week folder. And then other tasks that I was collecting saying, well, as long as I get it done this month, it's good enough. So I put it into this month. And then I thought, well, what about those long-term tasks? Those tasks that may be 3 months out or 6 months out, what do I do with those? I thought, okay, well, they need to be done probably in the next month. So I put them into a next month folder. And then there's those tasks that actually come up which could be like a year out. They may be basically what you would call the someday maybe tasks. And I thought, well, okay, let's just put them into a long-term folder. So essentially I ended up with 5 folders. That's this week, this month, next month, and long-term. And I started using this system about 8 to 10 months ago. Oh, wow, did this change my whole productivity system completely. My decision making was so much better. Basically, I only had to make one decision. When am I going to do it? I didn't have to waste time thinking, well, is this a project? Does it involve 2 steps or more? Then it must be a project. Well, when am I going to do it? Oh, and if this task, does it belong to this project or this area of focus or that area of... that was just way too many decisions to have to make. And another problem I was finding was those decisions were being made at the end of the day. Basically, when I was tired, my mind was I was beat. Not a good time to be making the right sort of decisions. But only having to make one decision, when am I going to do this task? Wow, That really changed everything. Now I haven't missed anything. I don't feel overwhelmed. There's no stress. All I need to decide is when am I going to do it. But then came another problem. I thought, okay, that's fine. That works. But what about my projects? How do I manage my projects? How do I manage my goals? And I realized that, well, hang on a minute. Our notes apps will do this far, far better than any to-do list manager, because your notes app is so much more free. You have so much more freedom. You can put in there like a timeline. You can put in a milestone chart. You can actually put in progress charts. You can actually put your files in there. Most apps will allow you to put a cloned copy of a file, so you just double tap and it opens up the Word document or the Google document that you're working on. But more important than that, if you have meetings, you can add the meeting notes in there. If you have like checklists that you need to follow, like a procedural checklist, you can put that in there. You have instant updates there available. When your boss comes and says, how's this project getting on? You just open up the Notes app, you can see everything there, you can see the status of anything within that project right from your Notes app. Your to-do list manager will only ever tell you what you've completed. And let's be honest, most to-do list managers, as soon as you've checked off a task, the task just disappears. So all you actually have is what's left to do. But whereas if you actually have all your project notes and your goals in your Notes app, you've got all the details, what you've done, what you've still got to do, everything is in there. And all you have to do is decide what needs to happen next and add that into your to-do list manager so that you have the next actions to work on. Simple system, works brilliantly, and I'd urge you guys to have a look at the system because it really does work. Now, this week I've actually launched a course right on this, which I call the Time Sector course. But if you're not interested in buying a course, I put out a blog post out there. I've done this video, which has given you some indication. And over it on this channel, there are a few like how to set this up in Todoist, To Do, Trello, and Apple Reminders. So you've got 4 task managers that you can actually use to set this up. So if you're not interested in buying the course, you don't have to, but I urge you to buy the course. It's not expensive because it goes into a lot more detail about setting this up, whatever note apps you're using. And seriously guys, this is a game changer. It will change your whole perspective on how you deal with your management of your tasks, how you deal with your task manager, how you're dealing with your notes. It really does change everything. It takes away the overwhelm, it takes away the stress, and you know instantly what needs to be done and what have you done with a project and where a project is. Hopefully this has given you some idea of what I call the time sector method or course. Now the reason I call it time sector, I should just point this out. I wanted to call it time boxing because technically you're just creating boxes for times, but that just will add a bit of confusion because there is a system called time boxing for calendars and I don't want to cause any confusion. So time sectors work. Basically you've got the 5 folders. I urge you to have a look. I'll put a link to the blog post in the notes below so you can have a read and just get a bit more detail about this. And if you really want to take it to the next step, if you want to implement this course, these details into your own life, then please take the course. It's there for you. You can take it and it's all downloadable. And basically you get the workbook as well. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching this video. And it just remains for me now to wish you all a very, very productive week. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. Now, I'd like to introduce you to a brand new way of managing your tasks. Now, this system is called the time sector system. It's designed to do away with your projects, to do away with your goals, or at least do away with them from your time management system, your to-do list manager, and instead focuses on when you are going to do the task. Now, the reason for this is from a research that I did for the whole of last year, figuring out why most people were really struggling with their tasks, getting their tasks done on a day-to-day basis. What I discovered was they were managing their tasks by project. And the biggest problem with managing tasks by project is, first of all, deciding whether a task is a project or not. 2 or more tasks becomes a project, which means that you end up with a huge project list. And once you have a huge project list, just managing that list takes up an awesome amount of time. time you could better be spent actually doing the work, not organizing. The time sector method is designed to do away with all that processing so that the only decision you have to make is when are you going to do a task. And let's be honest, it doesn't matter how motivated, inspired, how urgent a task is. If you don't have time to do it, it is never going to get done. So I have launched a brand new course that gives you the step-by-step approach of setting up the time sector method. It's a revolutionary course. It's designed for the 21st century. For all the inputs that we get today, all the emails, the Slack messages, and everything else that comes our way, it's designed to deal with that, to manage that so you stay focused on what you have identified are your most important tasks for the day. I'd love to see you in the course. Full details of the course are in the show notes below. I'd love you to check it out. Join me in the course and let's take your productivity to a greater level than you've ever imagined. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. I just wish you all a very, very productive week.